Welcome in the latest episode of the Betting the Pitch Soccer Podcast. This is the Champions League Match Day 2 episode of the quarterfinals of this Champions League 2026. I'm your host, real_G Warner. Tonight, we're going through the final two games on the Wednesday card. We'll come out with the best bet coming end of show. If you're not following the podcast, do so at Betting the Pitch, Apple Podcast, and on Spotify, at the real_G Warner on YouTube and on Instagram. If you want the shorts or the reels or the full length episode, if you're looking on YouTube. We're going to go through tonight. I'm wearing a Bayern shirt, which is rare. Not really a huge supporter, but I don't have any other of the options of the teams remaining in the competition. So doing what we got, and let's get into it now and try to break down. We're going to go through the sides totals, two advanced numbers, all those sort of things. Try to get you some winners for this Wednesday, April 15th, 2026 card. So we'll start in Germany with a shirt of the kit or whatever I'm wearing with the badge in the middle. Currently, Bayern München are a one-goal favorite with all the juice right now at Bet Online. If you're not a subscriber at Bet Online, hit me up at the real_G Warner across any social media platform. I'm happy to sign you up there. Longtime supporters of the podcast, and of course, great spot to save some juice on betting lines. If you want to get a little bit deeper into the weeds of this number, so Bet Online, kudos to them, are offering alternate spreads right now. So we also have a 1.25 up there, which they hadn't done in a long time, really since I feel like 4 or 5 years ago, maybe even COVID times. But regardless, Bayern are also 1.25 goal favorite, a little bit more, I think, digestible juice if you're interested. And that's Bayern 1.25 goal favorites minus 107 to Real Madrid minus 113. Now, here's where the first leg went or how it went. Real Madrid were down 2-0, got a late goal and made Bayern a little bit nervous. It felt like to me the commentators in the US were calling it like the greatest game in history. I don't know if they're overselling it, but Real Madrid were pretty dead at 2-0 down at home in the Bernabeu, got a late goal, and now seemingly there's some hope or a chance that they could stay in this competition. Though they need to, if anyone needs a brush up on how this all works. So they're down 2-1. They have a second leg on the road to try to equalize the score. If they win in regulation, they will at least force extra time. If they win by 2 goals, they can advance. Bayern on the other side, they can draw and get through. They can lose and go to extra time, which generally I would always favor the home team, as I think anyone in the betting market would, because it does matter to have your home crowd behind you in this sport at the very least. With all that said, Bayern München are celebrating at the final whistle if they draw this matchup because they are advancing. Real Madrid are really, really sad, yet they're covering spreads for you in that situation. So that's not something to dismiss and something that's very important, especially when this number has climbed over 1 to 1.25. That basically gives you some free money on a single goal Real Madrid loss because they will win you half a bet and push your +1. They'll win the +1.5 because that's how you get the split between 1 and 1.5 for that 1.25. And that all looks really good and fine and dandy for a team that is probably going home, Real Madrid. It's going to be really hard for them to overturn a deficit on the road by winning, but they could draw or lose by a single goal and still cover the spread. So that looks very interesting to me and something I'll certainly be considering in this matchup. Now for the totals, we have a bunch all over the place. 3.5 is under +137, 3 3/4. Half your bet at 3.5, at half at 4 is +110. But the number I'll discuss in this one is kind of the standard number, and that is Real Madrid, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich under 4 goals with a little bit more juice to under. So that's a enormous total. Maybe not so much in Champions League, especially second legs. They seem to see a ton more goals than they do in other competitions. But with that said, stronger teams at home, which is also a big concern considering how well Bayern Munich have played this season. And usually, if they win the first leg, the second leg has seemed to get pretty ugly across the major competitions, Europa League, the Champions League, and even a little bit in the Conference League that I've been paying attention to this season. So that's something to consider, especially Real Madrid. They've not been great defensively this season. What have they really been great at other than firing managers? I'm not sure. Want to also get through with a two advanced number on this one and show you where it's moved before we come back to where the number is. So initial opener, we saw Real Madrid a +211 underdog. So 100 US win you 211 if they had advanced. Bayern Munich opened -255. So if you had put down 255, you win 100. Those numbers had dropped until kickoff. A lot of money had come on Real Madrid, probably based on their history in this competition, maybe by resting against Mallorca heading into the first legs. So that was a loss that probably gave away their chances at La Liga and winning unless they can somehow win at Camp Nou on the road in La Liga play. But that's not what they're worried about in this competition. But we did see it drop precipitously all the way down to plus 177. That was a pretty significant drop. I was surprised at it, especially considering the problems that Real Madrid have had this season. But sometimes the market's right. I don't think it was in the scenario. It was ultimately a big, big drop from the initial fall of 19.21% down about, let's say, 43 points, I think it was. Let me see if I'm doing that math right. 23, 34 points, excuse me. And Bayern München had dropped from minus 255 to minus 205, a decrease of 24%. So clearly the money was on Real Madrid. I like them as a quarter goal underdog, especially because Real Madrid at home at the Bernabeu as an underdog is almost an auto bet because it never happens. But they fell behind 2-0, and that's usually a good sign that the bet was not a good one. With all that said, and I guess Thibaut Courtois not playing was not great. Maybe that was not expected by the marketplace. Regardless, we're now here late night with the real underscore G Warner. You get on. Thank you for coming in. Thank you for staying with us. But right now, Real Madrid are plus 505 to advance. 100 wins you $505. So that's giving them about 17% chance or so to advance, which is still pretty feels pretty high. Though they're only down one goal. And if they can somehow win this match in regulation, they can either advance or force extra time. And you never know, especially if they get to a penalty shootout, where it's truly a coin flip and having a 17% underdog is a great situation in any 50-50, 51-49% type of situation. Now, on the other side, Bayern have climbed to minus 700, an increase of 63.5%. And that's a big, big jump, to say the least. From the close, increase of 70%. So even bigger because they had fallen as a favorite up until kickoff. Um, I don't really see Bayern München messing this one up. Yes, you could argue that they haven't been great. They did win Champions League a couple years back, that year when they dominated Hansi Flick's new side, or Hansi Flick dominated Barcelona with Bayern München and then ended up moving in and is currently the manager of Barcelona. But that was on yesterday's episode, so we don't really talk about that more. Um, but trying to think of like how Real Madrid are going to do this. They're going to need to score goals, which is not great for unders, and it's really not great for road underdogs because I want low scoring games in those scenarios, and they're going to have to push forward. The best part is Real Madrid, with a disciple of Jose Mourinho and with Carlo Ancelotti and his impact on Real Madrid, and partly why Xabi Alonso is not managing there anymore after starting the season, is because they want to play a more conservative style of football. It's worked for them in Champions League for years and years and years, despite playing poorly, finding ways to win. And that's something I expect to see from them in a more defensive effort than potentially the marketplace is giving it credit for. So, does that, I mean, I do love a push on four, which is a gigantic total. Usually three is a key number for me in football or soccer, or European soccer betting. Four is gigantic. So that does certainly interest me a fair amount. I think I like the Real Madrid plus 1.25 even more, though, because they're simply going home on the final whistle with a single goal loss, even with a draw. And those two situations cover the spread. And that's something that I think is not something to be ignored, dismissed, all those sort of things. The under three is an interest for me, just really based on the price and the variance for the number I made it, though, of course, with any sort of second leg, you probably need to expect more goals. That's something I'm working into my model moving forward. Now, for the other matchup on the list, we have Arsenal and Sporting Lisboa of Portugal. A 1-0 victory for Arsenal on the road in stoppage time at Sporting Lisboa. Don't really understand the leaving of the middle of the field and from Sporting Lisboa, leaving Kai Havertz alone for uh, a ball into the box to score. Yes, the defender didn't know that was going to happen, but pretty much left the man he was marking to go try to shut down someone dribbling far in a far less dangerous position. You could argue that they were tired. It had been 90 plus minutes, and there's probably around 100 minutes for the game time. There's only plus two extra time in the second half, which is wild, but probably good for under players like myself in that one. With that said, Sporting Lisboa made a colossal mistake after playing really, really well and honestly going for it late to try to win on their home pitch. Now they got to go to Arsenal, win the match, just force extra time, win it by 2 goals in regulation to advance without going to extra time. And then somehow I think their goal is to win, force extra time, and then survive a penalty shootout. That's going to be hard because I mean, a lot of the marketplace was into Sporting Lisboa, I think, based on Arsenal really struggling with Southampton in the FA Cup and their return from the international break, and Arsenal maybe just not playing well in the last few weeks, slash how bad the English Premier League has been this season is pretty much another way to put it. Um, let's get into the numbers. So currently, Sporting Lisboa are a one goal underdog with a little bit more juice on the road heading to North London. Total in here is 2.5. Choose to split -110 both ways, so no real indicator which way this will go. And that does we've seen some money come in the on the under to make it -110 both ways, but um, ultimately it's about as in the middle as you can expect with any sort of total, and that does very much interest me because we saw such little attacking ability. Honestly, Sporting Lisboa had a really great chance earlier that David Raya made a great save on the Arsenal goalkeeper, and besides that, there really wasn't much. Rui Silva hadn't, I guess, had some stuff to do, but honestly, it didn't seem like he was really stressed too much for much of that game, but did ultimately fall behind, and that's probably the death blow in this competition. To talk about two advanced numbers, and Sporting Lisboa were probably the weakest team that were left in the remaining quarterfinals, and Arsenal drew the best team as they've been pretty fortunate, but seemingly all season, and good for them on that one. Arsenal have climbed from -692 favorite at open. They initially fell to -560 before kickoff. Sporting Lisboa is over 5-1 underdogs, 501 plus 501, 100 win G 501 for them to advance at the Open. At the first number I saw, fell 19% down to plus 421. Well, they're up and pretty much double that to plus 836 to advance right now, an increase of 40% from the opener, increase of nearly 50% from the close, hence the 2-1 climb. Arsenal have climbed from -692 down to -560 up to -1400. So 1 to 14 or 14 to 1 on. They've increased significantly because they won on the road and now get second leg and really don't have to win in order to advance. Similar to Real Madrid, we have a weaker team going on the road who had lost the first leg, and they're in a much better position, I think, to celebrate, though they're going home and out of this competition. Arsenal has dominated its opponents all season, really not conceding any sort of goals, never mind goals, not even conceding shots. Will they be able to do that again is a big question. Sporting Lisboa must score at least one goal to advance, to force extra time. And I do think that we're going to see them play a little bit more football. It worked fairly well for them in their home stadium. Very hard to do that in North London in front of a team that just instituted a song for the club, club hymn in the last few years, which seems really tacky and lame. But I guess not having one for so long, they needed to join the rest of their compadres, especially in North London, doing what Tottenham does. I don't know, whatever. Um, but putting my disinterest in Arsenal aside, I do think this is going to be a tough matchup for them because they've not looked good for a very long time. And a lot of why they're winning the English Premier League is because the rest of the teams in that competition have been horrible. Manchester City basically had a year off where they were just trying to figure out and were stuck in the mud. Um, on the other side, Liverpool were so fortunate last year, and really it seems to be whoever wins the Premier League, the last two seasons specifically, has just been because everyone else, there was no true challenger. They had so many other problems elsewhere, injuries, like Arsenal didn't have a striker for a month, it felt like. That was poor resources planning and all those sort of things. But in this competition and any continental one, you should expect the UK to dominate money and to bet Premier League teams unreasonably more than the rest that's out there, especially against a club from Portugal, which doesn't get enough respect, in my opinion. For that reason, I'm interested in Sporting Lisboa +1. I think I'm more interested in under 2.5 because that is them playing a defensive brand of football, but trying to find a way to counterattack and score on Arsenal. I think Arsenal will be very mature here. I think that's one thing we can expect from Mikel Arteta. He's not going to give Sporting Lisboa a lot of chances. He doesn't do that anyway. His style of play doesn't. But I think there'll be extra concern and careful about not giving Sporting Lisboa chances on net. I think it's going to be harder for Sporting Lisboa to cover that one goal underdog, but I do like it too. I think the under 2.5 is more interesting to me, just based on the fact that Arsenal will be the one that dominates this game. They are at home, and I think they will be playing with a very concerned element to them after what happened in the FA Cup, how they got dominated after dominating an entire half in the uh, Carabao Cup final against Manchester City, and we'll see what happens from there on then. So that is this episode. Just two matches discussed, went in length. Hopefully, gave you all enough to ponder. We'll be putting out an ultimate best bet that's about to come into show, so don't sign off just yet. But we'll be putting out one on YouTube at the real underscore G Warner and at on Instagram at the real underscore G Warner in the real and shorts functions. We were 3-0 last three best bets. Biggest interest from this window for sure are, I'll just summarize them. It's the underdogs and it's the unders. I think the under is a little bit more difficult to play in München as it is compared to North London. And for that reason, I think I'm going to go with a correlated play here, which I believe in Sporting Lisboa. I don't really trust or respect Arsenal and what they are at this point in the season. I think they're overvalued. So I will combine that into an Arsenal Sporting Lisboa under 2.5 play. It was a winner in the first leg. We'll go back to the well, see if we can get two of them on this one. We might even see another goalless draw. Arsenal will be ecstatic for that. I would be because it certainly would no be near and over, but also give Sporting Lisboa a cover, and that might make it onto the card on this Wednesday, April 15th. For more of my action, go to patreon.com/real_G Warner, download the app, sign up for notifications. You get a buzz every time I lock something in. And other than that, we'll see you in the next episode. We're doing Europa League on the Wednesday night edition, covering all Europa League and Europa Conference League matches as we fight through our way to the end of the season. Thanks for the support. Talk to you all soon.